All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a pretty incredible true story about how a few university students in England managed to bring order to a completely chaotic game and, in the process, ended up shaping global football. We're zeroing in on the creation of the very first written rules of modern football, which actually emerged back in 1848 in Cambridge. So, if you've ever wondered how a really messy, localized pastime evolved into the beautiful game that literally stops the entire world for the World Cup, you are in the exact right place.
And really, this question right here is our starting point. How exactly did a chaotic schoolyard brawl become the world's favorite sport? It's a genuinely fascinating historical mystery, because before the mid-19th century, football wasn't so much a formalized sport as it was, well, a survival test. There was absolutely no single way to play. The rules you followed depended entirely on where you went to school, and when different groups tried to play together, total disaster. So today, we're going to trace that dramatic problem and solution arc that forever changed sports history.
Section 1. The Age of Chaos. Football before 1848. Picture this. During the early 1800s, every single public school in England played by its own distinct set of rules. There was zero unified code. So when university students from all these different schools arrived at Cambridge and, wanted to play a match against each other, they faced a massive problem. They were effectively trying to play completely incompatible games on the exact same field at the exact same time. We actually get a vivid glimpse of this madness from Henry C. Malden. He was a student who went up to Trinity College, Cambridge back in 1847. He remembered an attempt to get a game going on Parker's Piece, which is a large, grassy park in central Cambridge, and he wrote, "The result was dire confusion, as every man played the rules he had been accustomed to at his public school. People described it as a general melee. You had players violently clashing over basic concepts, like whether you could even use your hands. As Malden noted, the Eton men literally howled at the rugby men for handling the ball. Just pure chaos."
Section 2. The 1848 Compromise. A midnight dorm room debate. To solve this dire confusion, representatives from the different schools realized they urgently needed to sit down and hash out a compromise. They gathered in Henry C. Malden's rooms at Trinity College in 1848 for what would turn out to be an epic, exhausting debate over the very future of the sport. Malden remembered that 14 men in all attended this meeting. 2 men were carefully chosen to represent each of the major public schools, so that's Eton, Harrow, Rugby, Winchester, and Shrewsbury, plus 2 representatives for the university itself, who weren't from those specific public schools. Malden cleared his tables after hall, which was at 4 p.m. in those days, and laid out the pens, the ink, and the paper. Every single man arrived either with a physical copy of his school's rules or knew them fiercely by heart. The atmosphere was so intense that some people popping their heads into the room actually asked if there was an exam going on.
But progress in framing these new rules was painfully slow. These young guys weren't just discussing a game, they were fiercely defending their deeply held school traditions. They debated for hours upon hours, going painstakingly line by line, trying to mash together vastly different styles of play into one coherent system. Malden and his co-representative for the university, a student named G. Salt, often acted as the crucial tiebreakers when the voting was split right down the middle, striking out or keeping specific rules just to keep things moving. Finally, exhausted but victorious, the meeting broke up just 5 minutes before midnight. They had actually done it. They drafted the new laws, which were printed as the Cambridge Rules. Copies were distributed and famously pasted up on the trees surrounding Parker's Piece for everyone to see, and crucially, to abide by. Section 3. The Cambridge Code. Skill over force. Now, the Cambridge Code wasn't just a simple list of compromises. It actually represented a fundamental ideological shift in how the game should be approached. This new code emphasized skill above brute force. It made a highly conscious decision that the primary objective on the field should be the ball itself, not the physical bodies of the opposing players. Think about the rugby style at the time. It permitted carrying the ball in your hands and encouraged a brutal practice known as hacking, which was literally and violently kicking your opponents in the shins to bring them down. The Cambridge style, on the other hand, stood in stark contrast. Based on the oldest surviving physical copy of these rules from 1856, which is kept in the Shrewsbury School Library, the ball could only be handled just to stop it. What's more, holding, pushing, tripping, and especially hacking were strictly and explicitly forbidden. It was a massive evolutionary leap toward a true skill-based game.
Section 4. Inspiring the FA Rules, the 1863 Showdown.
So, fast forward to 1863. The newly formed Football Association has convened in a London tavern to establish a definite nationwide code of rules. but they are locked in a bitter, acrimonious dispute. The exact same arguments that the Cambridge students had settled back in 1848 were now tearing the FA apart on a national stage. If we look at the journey of the rulebook, Rugby had established their highly physical style in writing back in 1845, while Cambridge countered with their unified skill-based rules in 1848. But here in 1863, during these incredibly tense FA meetings, the Hackers, the clubs that desperately wanted to keep carrying the ball and kicking shins, actually held a narrow majority. The fate of modern football was quite literally hanging by a thread.
And that is where Ebenezer Morley enters the picture. He was the FA secretary, and he stepped in to fiercely champion the Cambridge rules, essentially saving the game as we know it today. At a crucial knife-edge meeting on November 24, 1863, the FA was completely deadlocked. Proponents of hacking indignantly argued that removing the violence savors far more of the feelings of those who like their pipes and grog or schnapps more than the manly game of football. But Morley firmly brought the delegates' attention back to the Cambridge rules. He brilliantly argued that laws thoughtfully crafted by gentlemen of note from 6 major public schools deserve the utmost respect. Thankfully, a small but critical majority sided with the Cambridge rules, agreeing that banning hacking and handling the ball was the only desirable path forward. And just like that, the Cambridge rules officially became the defining influence on the 1863 Football Association laws.
Section 5. Parker's Peace Legacy. The birthplace of the beautiful game.
It is honestly remarkable to think that a single patch of grass in Cambridge, where those initial handwritten rules were nailed to the trees, is now universally recognized as the birthplace of formalized football. It's the spot where a chaotic melee was transformed into the highly structured sport we recognize today. And today, the city of Cambridge actively celebrates that incredible legacy. There's a massive public art project called Cambridge Rules 1848 that's been gathering the world's first digital archive of what football means to the masses. Fans from Buenos Aires all the way back to Cambridge have been eagerly leaving personal stories, images of their favorite local grounds, vintage shirts, even tattoos on the project's website. It's a beautiful highlight of how the laws of the game spread outward from these very fields to encompass literally every single corner of the globe.
In fact, if you visit Parker's Peace today, you'll find a stunning physical monument to that history, which was installed in 2018. It's a large stone, deliberately cut into 9 pieces, and intricately engraved with the original laws of the game in several different languages. 4 of those cornerstones remain permanently on Parker's Peace, while the others travel to 5 football-loving countries across the planet in an ongoing cultural exchange. I mean, what a brilliant echo of exactly how those original printed rules traveled outward across oceans and borders to ultimately conquer the world.
So, the profound takeaway here is this. Every single time you sit down to watch a World Cup match, you are seeing a structure that owes its very existence to a late-night dorm room debate and a few pieces of paper pasted to the trees on Parker's Peace. It's an absolutely incredible butterfly effect, right? And it leaves us with a fascinating, lingering thought. What local chaos are we organizing today that will completely change tomorrow's world? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you found this slice of history as deeply captivating as I do. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.